Hi. So excited to figure out how to fix the mute button, apparently. Okay, so I'm really excited to get to talk about Atomic Habits, chapter 3 and chapter 4. I think this book is fantastic, and it's really funny how it works out that you get to lead things when you're like, oh, I'm crushing this area. And then you read the chapter and you're like, oh, this is why God has me leading this week. So he is talking about in chapter 3 that the process of habit formation begins with trial and error. So the reason that this stood out to me the most is, and if you guys see me, I'm looking at my remarkable, is because in order to have trial and error, you must first be okay with the error. This blows my mind when somebody starts something new and then they're ticked off that they're not great at it. He says the process of good habit formation begins with trial and error, which means you must gonna have to be okay with not being good at it at first. Without error, there can be no trial. Trial, error, repeat. Trial, error, repeat. So when it relates to Plexus, to me, it means that you got to be okay with being a disaster before you're a master in any of the skill sets. Okay, so if you want to make great habits when it comes to IPA, you first must be willing to be okay with having to not be great at it. That means you're going to have to trial this message and see what kind of response rate this gets. Like, oh, okay, this one got a better response rate than I thought. What was it about this particular connection that allowed that to happen? Or, man, I really put my heart and soul into this connection and it didn't go that way. Wonder why? Was it me? Could it have been a timing issue, etc.? So you must be willing to engage in the process. Same thing with duplication. Some of you guys are over there going, I don't know why I won't duplicate, but I'm also not willing to do a welcome call because I'm afraid I won't be great at it. Newsflash, you won't, but you'll be better the second time than you were the first time. And you'll be even better the 100th time than you were the first time. So you got to be willing to engage in a process if you hope to create good habits around this business. There are 4 pillars you must master, and all of them require good habits. You got to master recruiting. It requires you being habitually connecting with people about Plexus, not about their kids and their hair bows and where they got them. That's a part of it, but you must habitually be connecting with people about Plexus over and over and over again. You got to master taking great care of your customers. That's retention. The good habit you need to form there is utilizing retention systems, making it a process, not you bits and pieces, or starting out strong the first 2 weeks that they're on the products and then tailing off at the end of the first month, like some of us do our books. Start real strong and then peter out. You got to master duplication, which means you have to be willing to engage in the process of follow-up when it comes to the opportunity. You got to be willing to trial and error. I invited this person to this opportunity event and they did not attend. Why? Was it a lack of rapport? Did I not cast vision? Did I not sell the call? What can I do so that the next trial maybe has a different error? So you got to be willing to engage in a process. My camera light makes it hard to read. Let's see. Okay. And then obviously leadership is the 4th pillar. You have to engage in habits there. The habits that I'm finding in the pillar of leadership that I have to be willing to trial and error is coaching and developing. Sometimes I try to tell my team one thing and what they hear is not entirely what I meant. So there's error. And then I have to try again. But it's just being willing to engage in a process. You cannot and you will not master any habits if you're not willing to be bad to get good. And that goes with your finances. Sometimes you're going to do a really good job of saving some money and then you're going to err. You're going to mess something up. It doesn't mean that you should not ever attempt to be wise with your finances again. It just means you got to be willing to engage in the process over and over. Skin knees always heal. Nothing is not figure outable. So you can do this. Okay. Then he talks about the feedback loop. I'm going to turn this camera light off. Oh, for real. I cannot see. Hold on. Gracious. All right. I'm old. All right, the feedback loop, trying multiple things until something clicks and only the useful action remains. Man, I thought that was really good because when you start something new, maybe it is Plexus, It's like you're constantly trying to affirm whether or not you're on the right track. Okay, is this working? Is this working? Eventually, you will get to the point. Some of you tell us all the time, I can't wait till I can do blank like Brittany does. Can't wait till I can do blank like Emily does. Can't wait till I can do this like April does. Some of you trying to figure out how to do your stories so that they're so seamless like April's. But listen, they weren't always that way. She just has mastered this feedback loop. And so everything that's not useful, she's been able to get rid of. But she had to engage in that process. Okay. One thing that I had to master that I really appreciate my feedback loop is when I first started talking to people about Plexus, I would puke Plexus all over them. I would give them so much not useful information. I'm talking to you, it was like a Plexus, man, it was rough. It was rough. But what I learned over time is, oh, these are the effective parts of that Plexus puke. Let me just put the rest off. Like, oh, they don't actually care about what Plexus did for me over here. Like I gave too much info. Let me just pull out what was useful. And it usually has to do with about them, whatever parts are about them. So that's that. When I think about this feedback loop, now, if somebody were to say, Christina, go recruit 18 strangers, I'm telling you, I could do it because I've got this feedback loop. I've messed up so many times. I've analyzed so many times. And now I just understand, okay, these are useful. And if I put them together enough times, if I trial and error it enough ways, if I followed the process enough, this is going to bring me to that reward that I want. Okay. All right. Oh, I love when he said in the book, habits do not restrict freedom. They create it. They create it. People will say, I wish I had your discipline to work out. I just don't want to have to go to the gym all the time. Blah, 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 blah. That just seems such a, I'm going, well, my habit of being physically fit has created freedom. I can go on vacation and utterly indulge for 10 days in Mexico and not work out the first time. Guess how many pounds I gained? Zero. It created freedom for me. Really hard work and habits created freedom. When you have a really diligent habits with your finances, and then you want to go buy that motorhome and you're able to write a check for it, that habit did not restrict your freedom. You had to put off, have some delayed gratification, but it created freedom. So in regards to my business, I created very disciplined habits in regards to my IPA and coaching my team and being willing to do welcome calls and hosting events. And you guys, for a little while, I had to invest lots of time. And guess what I have now? Lots of time, lots of freedom. So sometimes people look at a temporary restriction of freedom as an utter sacrifice. And I'm over here looking at it like a freaking really smart investment, because I know it does not restrict my freedom. It is creating it. So, okay. In this business, it's the people with the best habits and systems that achieve the most freedom. It's the ones who are willing to engage in the process. Here's something else I really, really like. Habits don't care how you feel about it. By the time you've engaged in a process so much that it becomes a habit, daily IPA, power hours, going to the gym, tracking your food, saving your money, investing in your marriage, whatever habit you're creating, habits don't care how you feel about it, which means on the days that you could care less, or you're so unmotivated, or this thing pops up or that thing pops up, but 9 times out of 10, the habit will still get done because it's automatic. I can't tell you how many times I have woken up in the middle of the night and thought, I'm gonna skip that workout tomorrow. Guess what? The next day comes, the habit kicks in, the accountability is there, and my butt's at the gym. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to skip today. Habits don't care how you feel about it. That's why forming them is so important. Habits expect to be automatically completed. It's called discipline. Discipline is not something that you wish you were born with more of. We're all born with the exact same amount of discipline. And some of you right now are like, I don't believe it. She's so disciplined. Of course she says that. Wrong. Discipline is a choice. It is forming lots of habits over lots of time and being willing to implement them. I am not more disciplined than you. I have chosen to be disciplined more than you have chosen to. There's a difference. You can choose it. If you're not disciplined, you can change it right now. Ask me how I know. 3 years ago, I wasn't disciplined either. At all. I happened to work hard. Like that is something that has been true from the beginning, but disciplined, smart work, not me. I didn't work out on the regular. I didn't track my food. I chose one day to be, it was actually a word that I chose for the year. And I just became it. I wasn't it. I wanted to be it. So then I was it. I just chose it. Okay. Building habits in the present allows you to do more of what you want in the future, which I'm telling you, I always make fitness analogies. If you hate fitness, you probably hate when I lead things because I can't help it. But building habits in the present allows you to do more of what you want in the future. I talked about the fact that I'm a foodie. I love food. I want to be able to indulge and enjoy and whatever. And I know that the habits that I have now allow me to be able to do that. Okay. So then he talks about with building like cues, craves, responses, and rewards. So I have a lot of things to say about a lot of this, and I'm running out of time. Okay, so cues are meaningless unless they are interpreted. And his example was the slot machine. Like if you're a gambler and you hear the slot machine, it's going to trigger some things for you. If you're a mom of toddlers and you hear a slot machine noise, like it is just utter noise. It's just total background noise. So when you're thinking about cues in this business, for me, it's going to be something like, oh, somebody mentions like tonight at the soccer field, someone in passing was mentioning that their husband had just received a diabetes diagnosis. And I'm telling you, immediately I was like, I know exactly what I need to do. The timing wasn't right, but I mean, it automatically cued something in my brain like, oh, okay, I need to go and do this. And now I will literally crave an opportunity to get to connect with this person. Like I know it's there, it's triggered, it's in my brain, and I will then take action on it. And then of course I will respond accordingly, and then there will be a reward. So, okay. What I found was interesting is he mentioned several cravings that people have in their life. 30 minutes is not enough time to cover this book. I need more time. Money. The two that I see people craving when they start something like this is money and service of others. Like those are the two cravings that I generally see people want to go after. Other people, it's fun. All those blues like Brittany, it's the fun, the entertainment, the parties. For the reds like me, it's the achievement. We don't even care what we win. It could be like some baloney. It doesn't matter. So whatever they're craving, something is going to cue a craving within them. And if the craving is big enough, they're going to respond. I loved when he said, what you crave is not the habit, but the change it delivers. I was like, oh, that's deep right there. It's not money that people crave. It's the habit of being disciplined with money that they actually crave. Okay. The response is your actual habit. You're going to perform. So it's going to be that daily IPA, that daily power hour, whatever that response is, that if you know in your brain, if I do this response repeatedly, it's going to allow me to fulfill this craving. I want to have a 6-figure income. Okay. If I consistently do my IPA, tell people about the opportunity and duplicate, eventually it's going to lead to a reward that's going to satisfy that craving. All right. The response depends on how motivated you are and how painful or how much friction not having it feels. Now that reminded me of somebody's why. People's motivation comes from having a big enough why. If it's more painful to not have what they wish they had than it is to risk what you're asking them to risk, which is rejection, inconvenience, sacrifice, etc., then they'll take the action. And if it's not, if their mindset can't allow them to believe that they can actually have it, then they will choose comfort. Okay. You have to have all 4 parts to form a habit. All right. He says right here, if a behavior is insufficient in any of the 4 stages, cue, crave, response, or reward, it will not become a habit. Eliminate the cue and your habit will never start. Reduce the craving and you won't experience enough motivation to act. Make the behavior difficult and you won't do it. This is why systems are so important for your team. If they can't understand what you're actually wanting them to do, they won't do anything. It's why systems are so important. If you know how to do something and your team doesn't, it's not on them to figure it out. It's on you to help them figure out this is the system. It's got to be systematic. You can't just tell somebody, well, that's just the way I do it. Okay, not working. That's not going to work. It's going to feel too hard and they won't take action at all. And if the reward fails to satisfy your desire, then you'll have no reason to do it again and again. This is why it is so important when you're setting goals with your team that you're setting realistic goals, that they're actually going to be achieving what you're telling them they're going to achieve if they do the action and the work that you're telling them to do. Okay. I like how he broke the cue and the crave into the problem phase and the response and the reward and the solution phase. We are here to be solution finders for people. There are cues and cravings. People have desires in their heart, you guys. If you're not sharing the opportunity because you think people don't need what you have, you are flat out lying to yourself. People have cravings in their life. They have desires and dreams. They might be hidden under a bunch of stuff called mindset, but they have them. And you possess systems, responses that if they will just follow, they will be rewarded. So you have to be the bridge that closes that. All right. So many more things. First law, Q, make it obvious. P.S. When it comes to the business, if you're not talking about the business, it's not obvious. If you ain't talking about it, it ain't obvious. Law number 1, make it obvious. Law number 2, make it attractive. This is the craving part. What you're asking them to do got to look better than what they're already doing. Or as good, you've got to make it attractive. If you look like you're not excited to be doing what you're doing, or they ain't coming. Make what you're doing look attractive. Law number 3, make it easy. This is systems. You are responsible for implementing, refining, and teaching systems. 4, make it satisfying. Make it satisfying. This is where you hear people say, people work harder for a praise than a raise any day. Find out what will satisfy and then offer them that. Okay. Gracious alive. Chapter 4. This is about the first law. Make it obvious. If you don't catch anything else, this whole call, here's what I need you to know. Self-awareness is key to changing a habit. This is important for a lot of reasons. You can't expect your team to change their behavior if you don't love them enough to point out things that they probably lack self-awareness in. Case in point, once upon a time, I hope I can share the story, Brittany. I mean, it was me that was in trouble, so I'm sure I can. I had asked Brittany to do a 3-way call for me. And in my opinion, not at the time, like in my brain, Brittany's on this call. It was with the Dream Teamer. I wanted Brittany to cast vision. So Brittany's casting vision. She's doing her thing. And in my brain, that was exactly the right thing. Like I got Brittany connected. I followed that system. Okay, this lady was open. I plugged her in with Brittany. I put my phone on speakerphone. I was prepping for a bikini show at the time. This is terrible leadership. But I was prepping for a bikini show. And in my brain, I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Brittany was doing what I needed her to do for my person. And I put on my high heels and was practicing my stage walk. Well, I'm just listening to the call, clearly focused. And after the call, Brittany called and she's like, how's it going? Like, what do you think about that call? I'm like, it was good. Thanks so much. You totally crushed it. She's like, well, I heard some clumping in the background. Were you? No. Then I made the mistake of posting a story about clumping. In my story, I posted a story about me trying out these heels and she could hear herself coaching on speakerphone. That's how she got me. She could hear herself coaching on the speakerphone. And she's like, were you practicing your walking while I was doing it through a call? I was like, yeah, like I'm proud of myself. I'm multitasking. Okay. And she's like, listen, she had to have a very hard conversation and make me understand that I was making her feel like I was taking advantage. She's like, I felt like you were taking advantage of my time. And I'm like, well, I felt like you were doing exactly what I asked you to do. Like I was not meaning anything by it. I was completely unaware that I had a role and a responsibility on that call. It did not ever occur to me that I was supposed to be stopping, analyzing what Brittany's doing and why it's different than what I would have done and figuring out how I could change my behavior in the future. I was just unaware. I mean, I value the heck out of the girl. I would have done anything she told me to do. I was just unaware. But here's the thing. The key to changing habits is self-awareness. She could have let me continue to be totally ignorant to that. Or she could love me enough to say, hey, listen. And she did say, I'm sure that wasn't what you intended, but this is how that came across right then. Here's what I expected you to be doing. Here's what you were actually doing. Help me understand. how you practiced in your high heel walk was going to help you grow as a leader. And I'm like, well, it wasn't. The point of the call was for you to convince that lady to work this business. And she's like, no, ma'am. The point of the call was for you to understand how I was inspiring her so you could go do it again. So I was just unaware. If a habit remains mindless, you cannot expect to improve it. So that's twofold. If you allow someone to remain mindless to something that they're doing habitually, you can't expect them to improve it. And you can't expect to improve if you don't allow people to call out things you are mindless to. So if you're receiving constructive criticism, just know we wouldn't have to tell you if you were already aware. So it must consider for a fact sometimes that perhaps you are blind to this and be open to the feedback if you want your behavior to be able to grow and improve. So I wrote down high heel story, so I didn't forget it. Check now that I've totally embarrassed myself. Okay. When he talked about pointing and calling things out, how the subway workers, when they implemented this system of pointing and calling, it started saving tons of accidents and even a kid's life. And for me, how this applies to me currently is coaching. When I'm coaching my people now, I've got a very clear idea of, okay, I know I want to do this. Okay, check. Like I will literally go through this in my brain. Like, okay, did I do this with this person? Check. It applies to you with, okay, did I send this message? Did I send a tool? Did I ask to enroll them on the phone? Did I do a welcome call? Did I ask the magic question? Did I address the objection? Like being able to very clearly call out everything that's expected of you so that you can notice if something's getting missed. It will keep you from becoming lackadaisical in your work. Sometimes when we do things over and over again, we just kind of go through the motions. Anybody guilty of that ever? I totally could be. And so if you have to stop and point and call things out, okay, did I connect right here on this welcome call? Did I spend, 2 or 3 minutes and ask those questions, those forward questions that I asked about their family? Did I ask about this and that and the other, or did I just jump right into what I needed to get accomplished? So it's just a checks and balance system. Okay. I liked when he said, many of our failures in performance are largely attributed to a lack of self-awareness. Most of the times when I have failed in my performance, it's not because I wanted to suck. It's not like, oh, I failed in my performance because I wanted to be a loser. I wanted to not meet my, potential. It's because I was unaware of what it was going to take to do that. And it always requires a leader to come alongside and say, hey, listen, right here, you just weren't aware. And now if you allow me to help you make yourself aware, next time you'll behave differently. Next time you'll perform differently. Next time you will at least have some awareness so that you can see a bigger, broader spectrum, right? Okay. So I loved when he said, create a list of your habits and then go and judge yourself. Is that a positive habit, a negative habit, or a neutral habit? And so for me, I literally just said, okay, from my last 2 hours of working, I sat down, here's what I actually did. So it was sit down for IPA, stop and watch a reel that was sent by my assistant, send a new contact message, text my trainer about what time I have to work out tomorrow, decide to make a post, scrolled Facebook to see what they were posting. I answered a call, unplanned call from my friend. I stopped for a snack. I unloaded the dishwasher. Like all these are things that was during my work time today. And if you had asked me what I'd spent the last 2 hours doing, I would have said I was working. And then I had to look at my list and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a bad habit. Why did I even open the message from my assistant? I know how to do IPA. I was in an IPA block. I don't need my assistant to message me about nothing. But I did it. So, okay, negative habit. Allow myself to text my trainer and ask about my workout tomorrow. It's not till tomorrow. I could have done it later. Negative habit. So anyways, just being aware of your habits. But then here is the kicker when he says, ask yourself this question. In his book, it was, does this behavior help me be the kind of person I want to be? I changed it in my notes and said, does this behavior help me to be the kind of leader I need to be? Does this habit allow this? If I allow someone I get on a coaching call, my habit is get on a coaching call, proactively coach. But if I allow someone to derail the call and totally take over and I'm not able to help with any of the proactive things, does that allow me to be the leader I want to be? The leader that's raising self-aware leaders who are moving forward? No, that habit doesn't. And when I'm aware of that, I can change that. Because I'm telling you, tomorrow during IPA, I won't be answering my message from my assistant. It won't happen. I'm aware now. I'm aware of the fact that I allowed that distraction. Okay. This is the first step of becoming self-aware. Learn how to observe without criticism or judgment at first. Just observe. Some of you can't get past the fact that you're calling yourself working your business when really it's full of all these distractions. So just observe, really take inventory of what you're doing. Don't judge or harshly criticize yourself. I mean, it's like when I started with my trainer and she's like, okay, just keep a food diary. She wasn't judging that diary. She just was gathering some information. And then once she had that, without judgment or criticism, she could form a plan for moving forward. So before you can create new habits, you've got to be self-aware of what you're actually currently doing, regardless of how you feel about the habit afterward. Okay. Oh, that's just more of my confessing when I was trying to coach somebody, what some of the habits that I noticed happen. I started out open and listening, ended up checking my phone while she was talking, mentally disagreed with what she was saying, but wasn't willing to go and tell her. Asked a clarifying question. That's a positive habit. Make an assumption, negative habit. Why are you laughing? Too vulnerable. Brittany's like, pull the plug. Okay. Here's where I'm ending with. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness. You must be aware in order to make a change. There is never any change that ever happens that does not first start with awareness, period. There's not ever been a change in the history of the world that did not start after somebody became aware of something. So be aware, allow people to point things out for you and receive it, and then be willing to do the same thing for you, the people that you're trying to develop. Don't assume that they're not taking the action that you want them to take because they're just unwilling. Perhaps they're just unaware. Don't assume that someone who responds this way is selfish or needy or a big old crybaby. Assume that she's just unaware that there are other ways to respond. Sometimes that's just all they know. And until you're willing to say, hey, listen, when you did this, it made me feel this way. Here's what I wish would have happened instead. Give them alternatives, help them become more aware. And I got lots of stories about that because I have been on the receiving end of many awareness conversations over the last 6 years. And now I'm real aware. So, okay, that's what I have. If you are on Britt's team, you're staying here. If I am your nearest diamond upline outside of April, you're going with me. And then April and Abby, they're jumping off on another one. So you should know where to go.
That was fantastic, Christina. Thank you.
You're welcome.